It's the 10th day of Scorpio season, which means that we're transitioning from the first decan of Scorpio to the second decan of Scorpio. And I'm going to talk about how to give birth to heaven. And this is kind of a transitional video because the topic I've been talking about is individuation, which is the right to give birth, and the responsibility, I guess, to tend to the process of giving birth in a number of different senses, and the final version of that is on the divine plane, and as it happens, giving birth on the divine plane is also the entire next book of Transcendental Kabbalah, which is basically a theory of total art. So, so what do I mean by giving birth on the divine plane? In my previous video, I mentioned that that there are 4 planes, and there is a type of birth that is proper to each of these planes. This is a very old idea. You can find this in Plato. Which is basically about, you can find it in Nietzsche, you can find it everywhere, that since there are actually 4 different dimensions of reality, there are bodies in all 4 of these planes. And so just like we have our physical bodies and we can give birth to physical children, we can also give birth to situations and institutions and states and so forth, which I also talked about. And then we can give birth to bodies of work of an artistic type, and you might think that was the highest one, but the really highest one is that we can give birth to the world. We can actually give birth to a not just a new institution or a new realm within society, but we can give birth to the fabric of reality itself. And we can't create it, because just like you don't create your son or daughter, you sort of passively but quasi-actively participate in the process of your child being born and being raised. There is the possibility available to human beings of giving birth to a new generation of humanity, or a new being that is beyond our limited ideas of what being human is. And without yet filling in what that being should be, or how much we can really know about what it should be, or even how to do it, we can just first sort of point out that there is this possibility. It is imaginable, it is conceivable that one can give birth to a new being. And my word for this generally is heaven, and my name for it is Heiligen, the sovereign hierarchico emancipatory individuation municipality, Heiligen, a new um, a new civilization, a new being, um, not just another civilization of the kind that humans have been kind of involved in, or kind of creating or whatever throughout the past 300,000 years, and not just like a biological evolution into a new species. Not like there's not like an AI god, like those those things could maybe be part of it, but um, the key thought right now is just that like that is a concrete thing, um, that one can conceive of like possibly being the most important activity you could participate in. And in some ways Nietzsche was surely the philosopher to really kind of, he wasn't the first person to sort of have this idea, but he, in his doctrine of the overman, the Übermensch, the metahuman, however you want to translate it, he certainly made it vivid how concrete this can be. When he was writing at a time, right? Nietzsche is the philosopher of evolutionary biology being a new thing, and then he's a philosopher who understands the kind of categories and methods of classical philosophy, and then he sort of imports ideas from evolution into philosophy. And so the idea of bringing the birth of heaven down to earth as something that could be as concrete as any other concrete thing that has happened in world history, kind of belongs to Nietzsche. In some ways Hegel was already doing that, but Hegel was so much more of a mystic than Nietzsche. Like Hegel didn't have any, he didn't really have any kind of theory of matter. Hegel's rationalism was not like, it's pretty sort of vivid, and much more mystical than I think people generally realize. But like he didn't conceive of this as birth the way that Plato did. But Plato didn't have the historical consciousness that we have, so this whole category was not even conceivable, I think, for Plato's time. So sorry, I'm moving a text, being very casual here. So now we're going to transition into my theory of metaperichoresis. I used to call it perichoresis. Right now I'm calling it metaperichoresis to distinguish it from the ordinary perichoresis of the Trinity. And just like the theory of heaven had 4 laws: sovereignty, hierarchy, emancipation, individuation, metaperichoresis has 4 laws: integration, coalescence, irrigation, and catalysis. And so these are kind of like the Four Commandments or something like that, where we're not in heaven yet, but we're agreeing to pursue an activity that will go in that direction. And so for the next 2 decans of Scorpio and then the first 2 decans of Sagittarius, I'll be talking about metaperichoresis, which is the practice of employing total art to give birth to the kingdom of heaven, whose name is Heiligen.